We have heard now for the umpteenth time that Kathleen Kennedy will be leaving Lucasfilm within the year. I don't know if this is true or not, but the rumors seem to have much more weight surrounding them than they have had in the past. Personally, I will believe it when I see it. Kathleen Kennedy is the type of person who clings to power without any reflection of their massive failures. Her failure might actually be the greatest failure in the history of Hollywood, considering the potentiality that Lucasfilm had when Disney purchased it from George Lucas. Today, I would like to throw in the name of Mr. John Knoll to take over the head of Lucasfilm. Now, the names being thrown out there in the media are Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, among some others without any creative background. But I would like to submit the name of Mr. John Knoll for a variety of reasons. I'd like to lay out his history and his past and how he came to Lucasfilm and how he became one of the primary mentees of George Lucas and how he has been pretty much the only individual who came from the Lucasian Lucasfilm crew to add something beneficial to Disney Star Wars. On the 20th of October 2012, George Lucas sold his life's work to the Disney Corporation for $4.05 billion, later regretting the transaction, noting, quote, "I sold my children to the white slavers who take these things and, In other words, Lucas regrets selling his soul to Disney CEO Bob Iger, the weatherman, the used car salesman, the pimp who knows how to buy and control but never create. But let's not get too negative. Let's focus on the good that still exists. The best that remains at Lucasfilm is without a doubt John Knoll. He's a tech genius, a model architectural genius, a film lighting genius, a cinematic visual effects genius, and a storytelling genius. Knoll's accolades range far too wide to go into, so I'm just going to hit some of the milestones. As a kid growing up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, Knoll obsessed over model making and realized at an early age the potential for making a career out of model making within the context of filmmaking. In 1979, at age 15, and on a happenstance visit with his dad to Southern California, Knoll had the opportunity to visit the headquarters of Industrial Light and Magic, ILM, then in Van Nuys, California, and he met the head of ILM's shop, Grant McCune. This set Knoll on a path to turn his childhood hobby into a true profession. Knoll moved to the West Coast to attend the University of Southern California's illustrious film school, the alma mater of George Lucas. During his university years, Knoll worked on a variety of motion pictures and television. In 1987, Knoll aided his brother, Thomas Knoll, in brainstorming software engineering ideas. The collaboration ultimately led to the development of the software program we all know as Photoshop, which in 1989, Adobe later purchased. The innovations and inventions of John Knoll are difficult to grasp because they are so great and vast. For a short example, when it came for him to work on Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, Knoll noted that every couple of storyboards, there was something we'd never done before, and they ultimately achieved and accomplished. In the mid-90s, Lucas admitted that he had waited to start production on the prequels until visual technology could catch up with his literary vision. Knoll's patents and work comprised a major part in realizing that tech and matching it to Lucas's creative aims. These technological advancements led to the 1990s original Star Wars Trilogy Special Edition releases and the Star Wars prequels. Love them or hate them, Knoll was solving problems Lucas identified. James Cameron acknowledges, John Knoll knows he's not there to make his version of the film, but at the same time, there has to be some pride of authorship in the way that shots look. I think it's that balance between having pride in your own work and the dazzle the shots will create, but making sure you're 100% delivering on the vision of the filmmaker. And having run an effects facility myself for years, I know what the traits of really good effects supervisors are, and I see all of that in John Knoll very clearly. Knoll would go on in 2007 to win the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects for his work on Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest. Knoll, notably, has 5 additional nominations for this same award. But how about the creative case for John Knoll? Let's look at Rogue One. John Knoll's not just a super successful technician and inventor. He's a double threat. Rogue One director Gareth Edwards states, "People are usually good from a technical side or a creative side, but not both. John Knoll is definitely a filmmaker. When it comes to Star Wars, some people get excited about meeting Harrison Ford. For me, it was John Knoll." Knoll's creative process truly embodies that of an artist and storyteller. Knoll originally conceived of the idea for Rogue One in 2004, while working on Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. His vision would see a Mission Impossible-style story, featuring the Star Wars Galaxy's version of SEAL Team 6. In developing the story, Knoll recalls, "So I started having this conversation with a number of people, and every time I pitched it, I would start to add more detail, and it would get bigger and bigger. Kind of as a mental exercise, I asked myself, well, if I were serious about this, who are the main characters? What are their arcs? What is the plot structure? How does this start and how does this end?" Unlike much of the storytelling from Disney Star Wars, which has been absent of any type of vision, Knoll understands the basis of storytelling and ultimately how to design a script. And like Lucas before him, Knoll also thinks about how technological deficiencies prevent challenges to visual storytelling. Rather than alter a story, he seeks to innovate a technological solution to make their original vision a reality. And taking on daunting tasks that merge the technological and the creative during the production of The Abyss, director James Cameron remembers, "We were in new technological territory, necessary to advance the story, but John was unflappable." If this sounds familiar, it's essentially because this is how many have characterized George Lucas himself. Many of the creative tools that Knoll and Greg Fraser developed to produce Rogue One led to innovations that made The Mandalorian possible, including ILM's LED volume technology. Many note that while supervising Rogue One, Knoll's dedication to detail and perfection in the vision mirrored that of Lucas himself. Like all good scientists, Knoll understands the advantage of standing on the shoulders of giants. Unlike the showrunners of Obi-Wan Kenobi, Deborah Chow, Ahsoka, Dave Filoni, and even The Mandalorian, Jon Favreau, Knoll actually cares about continuity. In responding to why Wedge Antilles does not appear in Rogue One, Knoll explains, "We discussed whether or not Antilles should be in the Battle of Scarif, but Wedge has that great line in A New Hope.
Look at the size of that thing."
So it's implied that he's never seen the Death Star in person. We wanted to preserve that. Director Guillermo del Toro states, "Knoll basically has the heart of a kid and the mind of a scientist, and that's a great combination." Brad Bird, director of Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, says of Knoll, "One of the reasons I like him is because he's not just about physics and light and properties. He's down for any crazy idea you want to do." Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy director Gore Verbinski states, "There's a duality to John. He's a brainiac in the best sense, so we could have conversations on subsurface scattering of light and fluid simulation and particle simulation, but I could also talk about a scene emotionally, like it would talk to an actor. He has that skill set as well, and that's very rare." Rogue One is not the only original Knoll story. Nearly a decade ago, he told Vanity Fair, "I have other ideas for stories. I don't know whether they'll ever get a place to where I'm ready to pitch them, or whether they'll get a positive response, but I have other thoughts." Logistically speaking, John Knoll is 62 years young, with a long and distinguished career already. He might be looking forward to a quaint retirement in Northern California. Yet Lucasfilm is in dire need of a graybeard to right the wrongs of the recent Disney Star Wars trajectory. At this point, I'd like to send a message to John Knoll himself. At this point, empirically, the Star Wars legacy might just be yours, Knoll, second only to George. Give us 7 years, John. You can do more in that time frame to put Star Wars on the right track more than anyone else alive. Not Favreau, not Filoni, only you, Knoll. Filoni was never George's protege, it was always John. With the damage done to Star Wars and thus the Lucasfilm brand, the entities need a true rebrand and innovative strategic approach forward with their respective endeavors. In the last decade, Disney's stock has tanked as fans have widely rejected Disney's take on the Star Wars universe. Things are so bad, Disney CEO Iger has even started selling off his personal stock in the mouse. Star Wars and Lucasfilm desperately need institutional reboots. They require a Lucasian visionary to take the helm. They need John Knoll.
Rogue One, may the Force be with you.